Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to another fan thoughts and analysis for the Overwatch League. Today we're going to be going over the Toronto Defiant Season 2 roster. Before I start, I want to say a couple of things. One, I'm a little bit sick, actually a lot of it sick, so my voice might sound a little off. That would be why. Second, I never got around to watching the footage that I would like to watch of players now for this Toronto Defiant roster. So when I do the video at the end of this whole thing, where I go back and I watch, or I go back and I talk about things that have changed for teams after I recorded their video, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to watch some footage for this Toronto Defiant roster specifically, because I think that they're a team that I need to do that for, because I have a lot of opinions on this team that I want to really go over. So those are two things I want to point out. Also, this video is probably going to be up a little bit later than usual. That's just because I recorded it once and I wasn't happy with it, so I'm re-recording it now, and it's a little late in terms of when I want to upload it and when I'm recording it now. So with that out of the way, let's talk about this team. The main thing I want to start with this team is not the DPS, it's not the tanks, not the supports, and nothing like that. It's not even the players. This team's organization, to me, is one of the most important parts of this team, and one of the reasons why I think this team is going to be successful if they are successful. Right? I think the players, of course, are a big part of this team, and they will help, and it's going to be, ultimately, they don't win unless their players are playing well. Right? That's the truth of it. But this team, I think, has quite possibly the best organization that people aren't looking at well enough. They have Bishop as their head coach, who was the head coach for the London Spitfire in Stage 1 last season, so he led them to a stage championship. Their analyst is Dennis Matz, aka Baroy, aka the founder of Winston's Lab, which is like the main Overwatch website for stats and all that kind of stuff. So we're talking about some real good people here. Some people who really put in the time with this game and this esport, who know their stuff. We're talking about Bishop, a guy who built a roster that was a championship-winning roster, both in Stage 1 and at the end of the season. We saw how London Spitfire performed after Stage 1. They started to fall apart. They didn't really have a head coach. Things were not really clear. You throw in Toronto, and I really think that Toronto has a very good organization in place to succeed. Now, their players are going to be the main part of that. If the players can play well and they work well as a team, then I think they're going to do well. Now, a lot of this comes down to Bishop's eye for talent, right? Bishop is the one who has to pull all these players together. He's the one who has to build the team and whatnot and say, I'm going to have this player and this player. And you got to be able to pull it together. So there's 3 players on this roster of 8 players that are all from the Overwatch League. There's 3 from O2 Ardiant, and then the other 2 are from different places. One's from 7, and one's from GGEA, or GG Esports Academy. We'll start with the DPS players. And we're going to start actually with the sub-DPS player for this team, the one who won't be starting, and that is Asher, who used to play for the LA Gladiators. Like I said, I did not watch a lot of film on this team, so all I know is really what I remember from some of these Overwatch League players from last season, Asher, of course, being one of them. Asher did not play a lot last season, and that doesn't seem to be changing this season, being that he is the sub. Now, he probably will get more play time than he did with the Gladiators, because of the Gladiators you had Hydration, and you had Surefour, and you had Silk Thread, who played mostly. Asher didn't really play a lot, but there's only 3 DPS players on this team. They probably need Asher for something. His hero pool looks to me like he's a big Tracer player, who isn't really in the meta right now, but there's also some McCree on there, who is pretty big in the meta right now. So we might see a lot of him as McCree if he's their best McCree player. I don't know if he is or not, but it seems like he might be. So um, it'll be interesting to see what he does for this team and what DPS play he brings. But he's their backup. But being that your backup is the guy with Overwatch League experience, that's not too bad. The other two both come from O2 Ardiant. The first one is Ivy. He is, from what I have seen, based on what I've looked into, he is a projectile player, right? Your Genjis, your Pharahs. I think he plays a little bit of Sombra. I think he got some hero depth. I think he plays a little bit of stuff that isn't just projectile heroes. I think he's got a little bit more depth, but he most likely will be their main projectile hero player. So you'll see him on like the Genji and the Pharah primarily, probably the Junkrat. He'll have to learn a lot of different heroes to be in the Overwatch League, I think. But I definitely think we'll be seeing him playing a lot of different projectile heroes. He might even be their Brigitte if they need a Brigitte player, if that's what they're doing. So that's kind of what I expect him to be. I don't really know how good he is. Obviously, like I said, I have to look into stuff, so if you can hear people upstairs. I think that he has to be the diverse hero player, because that's usually what the projectile players do. So that's what I expect Ivy to be. Their last one is Stellar, whose signature hero, from what I've seen, is also Tracer. So I have no idea who he's going to be playing. If he's just going to be playing Tracer, if he's going to be playing Hitscan, I don't know. Obviously has some time to learn some other heroes. I'm gonna while I'm talking here, I'm gonna just pull up an R2 Ardiant game just real quick. But I think this DPS is very important to this team, of course. And I think there's a big question mark surrounding these teams. Or this team's DPS player, sorry. Because you only have so much. And I think there is a genuine question surrounding this team with its DPS play. Right. Not necessarily that they're bad, but that they're not super experienced, and they don't look super diverse in their hero pools. They seem pretty stationary in their hero pools. I'm taking a look here. O2 Ardiant. I'm seeing Ivy on the Pharah. I'm not seeing Stellar playing here against Metabellum. Still not seeing him play. But yeah, I am seeing one of the other players on this team. But it looks to me like Stellar doesn't even play that much, or didn't play that much on this team. Here he is playing some D.Va. So interesting little thing there. Playing some Tracer here. That D.Va, he might not even played D.Va. That might have just been like his... Yeah, that was just like his hero because he was in the spawn room. Yeah, some Brigitte. But mostly Tracer. So, Tracer and Brigitte, that's all I've seen so far. So, with that in mind, and some Hanzo. So, okay, so there's some flex and diversity to this team's roster. You get to see me live watching some of this footage, just kind of see what they have. I don't know how good as Hanzo is, I don't know how good as Brigitte is, but maybe we'll be seeing some Stellar and Brigitte instead of Ivy. Ivy will be playing more of that Pharah, more of that Genji, that Junkrat, kind of stuff like that. So they have some diversity. Asher brings in, obviously, a little bit more. I don't know how much more he might, like I said, he might be the best McCree player. I should probably slow down my talking. I'm talking a bit too fast. Overall, I think this DPS group is okay. I feel like it's pretty solid, and I think that this team has a pretty good chemistry also in the DPS roster, because you have two that played together. I'd have to go back and watch a little bit more of O2 Ardiant to see if Stellar played more often than he did. It just seemed like in that game he didn't play most of the game. He only played some of it. So I'd have to check to see if that was um, something to do with the players they had. If they weren't actually as good as um, if Stellar wasn't as good. But I've talked enough time about this DPS roster. Let's move on to the tanks, where you have one flex tank and one main tank. And the one flex tank is Envy, formerly of the LA Valiant, played behind Space. He was, as someone who played behind Space, he obviously was only so good. In reality, he was not really the main player for this roster. He wasn't the one who was doing most of the Devo play. That was all Space, because Space is a superstar Diva player. Space is incredibly good on that Diva. One of the best in the league. Definitely the best in the West, in my opinion. So, and I know what I'm saying in the West. I'm not saying in the Pacific Division. I'm saying not in China or Korea, or I guess Japan. But Japan doesn't really have a great Overwatch scene. But you get the idea. So Envy, he's played a little bit at the beginning of the season. Then he went to Metabellum to play in contenders. He actually played on, obviously, the Metabellum team that eliminated O2 Ardeon. So he has had some experience. I think he'll play pretty well. I think he is one of those players that won't be incredible, but I think he will be good. He has that experience. He's been in the Overwatch League. He's been on the big stage. He can at least bring some knowledge to this team and help them with winning. I feel like my sick voice is really coming out now. For their main tank, they have Yakpung, who also goes about to Ardeon. Plays Winston, Reinhardt, Orisa. I did not pay much attention right now to what he did. But he seems to be a decent main tank. He was playing in every map I looked at, so he's consistent in the fact that he can play, which is good. That's what you really want out of your main tank. I don't know how he will compare to a Fisher or to a Roar or to a Mono. Some of these different levels of main tanks in the league, but I'm interested to see how he does. I think Bishop scouted some talent for this team. I'm sure there's a reason why he scouted the players that he did. Yakpung is one of those that I think he has some faith in, of course, if he decided to bring him on. So I'm interested to see how Yakpung and Envy do. Yakpung, obviously being an O2 Ardeon player, has some history and some chemistry already with those DPS players on this team, so gives a nice level of, oh dear, man, my sickness is really getting to me right now. Gives another level of synergy for this team, and it helps this team out a lot. Alright, I have cleared my throat, gotten some of my sickness out, so let's power through the last few players. We have the supports for this Toronto Defiant roster. We're going to start with their off support, their flex support, whatever you want to say, and that is Neko, formerly of the Boston Uprising. Now, Neko, of course, a solid player, in my opinion. Not a fantastic, Jonak or Badoshin type Zenyatta player, but a good player. Obviously, he has experience, played on a team that had a very good run throughout the first season. What's interesting to me is the position that he's in. Was he a team that or was he a player that they felt they didn't need because they have Aim God? Were they planning on, cutting him? What was the reason why he's on this team? Is there something about Neko we don't know? My guess is it was just the Toronto Defiant said, hey, we would like Neko, and we'll offer you some money. And they just said, well, that's a good amount of money they're offering, and we have Aim God in the back. Yes, you can have Neko. That's my guess for what happened, but I'm not positive if that's actually the case. But I think Neko adds a lot to this team. He adds experience. He adds, steady, consistent Zenyatta play. I think he's a big part of this team, and he's going to be a big reason why they may succeed this season. So I really love that they added him. Next, for the main support, we have Aid from GG Esports Academy. From what I watched of GGEA, he played that Mercy, he played that Lucio. Those are the kinds of things that main supports really play, and those are the things that right now are big in the meta. Mercy, obviously not as much. Mercy has died down a little bit since then, but Lucio is the hero right now that is dominating the meta, that is most important to the meta, so he's played those. I think he'll be a fine player. I think he knows what he's doing, and I think I don't know if he'll be the shot caller for this team. I think in a lot of teams, supports are shot callers, so not every team. So I would be curious. I'll be curious to see who the shot caller is on this team. But Aid brings support play, and that's the most important type of play in a lot of ways to how a team shot calls and survives and all that kind of stuff. So Aid is going to play a very important role. GGEA was not an amazing team in contenders, so I wonder if maybe we see a team that isn't that great. You transfer him over. Is he one of the strengths of that team? Will he be able to help his team out, get his team going? I don't know. We'll see, though. Both of the supports from that team are in the Overwatch League. I don't think either of them are going to be fantastic, but one of them is going to be a starter. One of them won't be. That's Gray for the Paris Eternal. So it's very, very interesting to see how this team will be going forward. Finally, we have Roki. He is their backup. He's got that Lucio. He's got that Mercy. I don't know really anything about him, but I think he looks like a player who's going to be doing that same kind of stuff that Aid will be doing. Maybe he eventually becomes a starter. I don't know. I don't know anything about him, but I think he's going to bring a lot to the table, similar to what Aid's going to bring as a main support player. Comes from 7 in Contenders Korea, so he's a little more familiar with the Korean scene, while Aid played in the North American scene. I'll be interested to see how this whole support roster works together, how it all meshes together. I love watching support play. That's my favorite type of play since I'm a support player. So I'll be really interested to see how these three work together, how Aid and Roki compete for that spot, how Neko does his thing. It's a very interesting team, and I'm very excited to see how they perform. But that's everything for the players. I think this team is a big dark horse contender for this season, right? The Atlantic Division is pretty weak. You have your 3 giants in New York, Philadelphia, and London that I think everyone's going to try to beat. They're going to be probably the top 3 teams, or 3 of the top 5 teams, whatever, in the league. Then you have Houston and Boston. Where are they? Does Houston have what they need to get up and swing at the top and hang with the big dogs? And is Boston, they made a lot of changes. Are they still going to be good enough to compete with people, or are they going to just plummet and be awful? You have Florida, and you're like, well, what's Florida going to be? I mean, are they going to be any good this year? I mean, who knows? Their team's completely different now, so they're a huge question mark. Then you have your Washington Justice, where people are like, they don't really look that great. You have teams like the Atlanta Reign, who have a very interesting and diverse roster that people have questions about. Then you have Paris and you have Toronto, that I think people look at. You look at Paris, they have all this talent, right? They have all these Overwatch League stars, or they have these players who performed well with an entirely European team. So people love the Paris Eternal. How well are they going to play? I look at all these Atlantic teams that are expansion teams, even just the teams in general that aren't your top 3. And I look at the Toronto Defiant, and I say they have Bishop as their head coach, a guy who proved himself last season. They have 3 players with Overwatch League experience, as well as the 3 other players who already have experience playing with each other. So you kind of get that chemistry going together pretty quickly, and you're looking pretty good. You got 2 other players, obviously, who aren't, a part of that one of those two groups. But you kind of see this team kind of works well together, right? And I think when you have a coach like Bishop, you have the guy who ran Winston's lab as your analyst. I think there's a lot of stuff here for this team to succeed. I think that kind of, I think the people on the staff that aren't just head coaches are super important to teams. We saw Wizard Tiong was a really important part of the New York Excelsior success. We'll see how he does in Washington, of course, but I really think this team has a lot of what they need to succeed, and I really am excited to see how this team plays. I'm going to end this video here, but thank you all for watching. Let me know down below what you think about the Toronto Defiant roster. I would love to hear it, but I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, have a good day, have a good weekend, whatever, and yeah, bye-bye.